we're in good company. Welcome. Today's event has been organized by StopWar.ca, and our first speaker is going to be Derek O'Keefe, co-chair of Stop War and also of the Canadian Peace Alliance.
Okay, thanks, Sarah. Do we want to come a little closer in, lacking our sound system? Come on in. Thank you for coming out today. I'm sure there were some exciting conservative, liberal, and other parties' rallies today that you're missing. So thank you for coming to probably the only election-related rally that will take a clear stand against the wars. So thank you for being here today. Give yourselves a hand. The election has been missing in action in this ongoing current federal election campaign. And there has been a lot of talk, especially from Mr. Harper, the Prime Minister, about coalitions, about scary, dangerous, reckless coalitions. So I thought I'd just start by reminding us all today that back in 2003, when Stephen Harper was the leader of the official opposition, he was very upset that Canada did not join a reckless, deadly coalition of the willing that was invading Iraq in March 2003. So that's the coalition our Prime Minister wanted to join back then. He actually wrote a letter in the Wall Street Journal the day after the war in Iraq started, pledging allegiance to the United States war, if you will, and regretting that Canada did not take part. And shame on Mr. Harper. And you'll remember Mr. Ignatieff back then in 2003, he was writing talking points for the White House war in Iraq. And writing long essays in the New York Times and other publications advocating for the invasion of Iraq. And I think looking back at 2003 and where our political leaders stood then, we understand why there has been a coalition of the liberals and conservatives to keep us in Afghanistan. First, we were going to leave in 2007, then they extended it to 2009, and then they promised that absolutely by 2011, every Canadian soldier would be brought home and we'd end our part of the occupation there. Well, they lied. Ignatieff and Harper teamed up again in a coalition to extend this war and Canada's role into it till the end of 2014, and who knows how long beyond that. So shame on those coalition of warmongers that we've had in Ottawa. We need a different kind of coalition, and we have the makings of it here today and in our anti-war work over the years. It's a coalition of communities who are struggling around the world, like the Tunisian people, the Egyptian people, the people in Libya, in Syria, in Yemen, in Morocco, the Palestinians who are bravely facing down the Israeli fighter jets even these past few days, the Iraqi people who have been standing up. That's the coalition we want to be part of, is the coalition of people power, standing up for self-determination and against occupation and war. Yeah. Now recently we've had the Canadian involvement in the war in Libya, and we've been here, many of us, every week or most weeks, with our Libyan brothers and sisters here who have been fighting for years against a dictatorship in Libya and have been... Okay, sorry, I'm not loud enough apparently. On Libya, we have the government of Canada all of a sudden has presented itself as being on side of the people in Libya who are struggling to overthrow a dictator. But let's remember what involvement Canada has had with Libya and Gaddafi this past decade. SNC-Lavalin, a major Canadian multinational which has an office here in downtown Vancouver, has been building a huge new prison in Tripoli for the Gaddafi regime with the support of the Canadian government. That's what we've been doing in Libya. Suncor, formerly Petro-Canada, paid a huge billion-dollar payoff, aka bribe, to the Libyan government for oil contracts. This was during the Liberal government of Paul Martin. This is what Canada has done in Libya. And Canada continues to look out for its corporate interests in Libya. We have to be very suspicious and skeptical of the Canadian government's involvement there. I think just like in Afghanistan, Canada, under Harper, under previous governments, they're not interested in peacekeeping, they're interested in keeping a piece of the profits from oil and other resources in these countries. So shame on Stephen Harper, and shame on Canada for heading up the NATO bombing in Libya and its involvement in Afghanistan as well.
Shame.
Now, one issue we have heard about in the election, and I'll finish up on that, is the F-35s. Canada wants to buy more fighter jets. They want to spend $30 billion on more fighter jets. And we're here today to say very clearly no to new fighter jets.
No.
So we say F-35s no, schools yes.
F-35 no, schools yes.
Fighter jets no, hospitals yes.
Fighter jets no, hospitals yes.
Fighter jets no, childcare yes.
Fighter jets no, childcare yes.
The other things we want, other things they could be spending the $30 billion on fighter jets are, why don't they look in their own backyard if they're interested in humanitarian intervention and provide clean water to Indigenous people right across this country who are suffering boil water warnings every day in dozens of communities around this country. So shame on the Canadian government. And one last thing, I guess I should talk a little more just quickly on Afghanistan, because it's worth remembering that Harper actually prorogued Parliament at the very end of 2009. There was a prorogation of Parliament for a month and a half by Stephen Harper. And what issue was it that Harper wanted to lock up, wanted to sweep under the table, that it wasn't discussed in Ottawa?
War crimes.
It was the issue of war crimes and torture of detainees in Afghanistan with Canadian complicity. So it's worth remembering that Stephen Harper went to the extent of shutting down Parliament to try to shut down discussion of the issue of torture in Afghanistan. So it's a real shame. It's a real shame that this election campaign, all the parties seem to have prorogued discussion of Afghanistan and foreign policy. And we've seen the reality of Canada's presence in Afghanistan is not just torture, it's bombing from the sky that has killed civilians. Countless Afghan wedding parties have been massacred. Last month, children collecting firewood, 9 children were massacred by NATO bombers. Every week we see massacres in Afghanistan by these fighter jets, the same kind of fighter jets that Stephen Harper wants to spend billions of dollars more on. So that's what we're here today, more on and Stephen Harper. There, they go together.